Hi, my name is Elias Cade, and a cop was the one who told me my marriage was over. It was a cold night on Highway 47. My wife was in the driver's seat, smiling like nothing was wrong, when Officer Rylan Crest pulled us over for speeding. He checked her license, then looked at me like I was a dying animal on the side of the road. He asked me to step out of the car. His hand shook a little when he pressed a folded note into my palm. His voice dropped so low I could barely hear it over the trucks passing by. Do not go home tonight. There is a man in your house, and your wife is not who you think she is. In that moment, with the patrol lights flashing on my face, I realized everyone on that road knew more about my life than I did. Tell me, what would you have done? When Officer Rylan Crest walked back to his patrol car and left us alone on the shoulder of Highway 47, Rowan turned to me like nothing had happened. I swear, Elias, that cop was acting weird. Maybe he's new. Her laugh was light, careless, the kind of laugh a woman makes when she's confident she's still in control of her world. Meanwhile, mine was collapsing in slow motion. I slid into the passenger seat, feeling the note in my pocket burn like a live wire. The words kept replaying in my skull. Do not go home. There is a man in your house. I stared at Rowan as she merged back onto the highway. She wasn't even shaken, not a tremor in her hands. Her nails, freshly painted a color I'd never seen her wear, glinted off the dashboard lights. A detail I never would have noticed before tonight. Now it felt like a clue I had missed for months. Where do you want to grab dinner? She asked. Anywhere that wasn't home. Anywhere that bought me time to figure out whether my wife was cheating or whether I was losing my mind. How about the Ridge Bistro? I said. I could use a drink. She smiled. Perfect. Perfect. God, the word tasted like acid. When we pulled into the restaurant parking lot, I opened her door for her out of pure muscle memory. 15 years of marriage trains you to do things even when your heart is turning to ash. She kissed my cheek, but I felt it differently this time, like an actor touching another actor between takes. Inside, the lights were warm, low, intimate. Everyone else looked normal, laughing over appetizers, couples leaning in close to whisper secrets. I wondered how many of them were living lies as big as mine. Rowan excused herself to the bathroom. The moment she rounded the corner, I walked straight to the men's room, locked myself inside, and unfolded the note. 8 inches of paper, 8 months of betrayal, her name, Damon's name, a timeline, a warning, and one sentence that hollowed me out. She gave him the combination to your safe. My chest tightened so hard I thought I might drop to the cold tile floor. I pressed my palms to the sink, staring at myself in the mirror. I looked like Elias Cade, owner of 3 successful shops, respected businessman, husband of a woman who wore elegance like a second skin. But inside, something had cracked, not broken, cracked. The kind of crack that spreads until the whole structure comes down. I walked back to the table. Rowan was scrolling her phone, her face half lit by the screen. When she noticed me, she angled the phone away, not dramatically, just subtly enough to show she'd done it before. My stomach twisted. Everything okay? She asked. Perfect, I said. And this time, the lie didn't even pretend to hide itself. She talked through dinner, about work, about her sister, about how Rylan needed to relax. I nodded, played the part, pretended I didn't notice her phone buzzing every few minutes with messages she ignored as long as I was watching. Every second felt like kneeling on glass. On the drive toward Emery's house, the silence between us thickened. Rowan kept glancing at her phone, then out the window, like she was waiting for something, or someone, to give her a signal. When we reached her sister's driveway, she leaned over and kissed me again. This time, I felt absolutely nothing. Not love, not anger, not fear. Just clarity. "I'll text you when I settle in," she said. "Love you." She said it too quickly, too smoothly, a line rehearsed. "Love you too," I answered, the words flat as stone. She stepped out, walked toward the porch, and didn't even check to see if I drove away. The moment she disappeared inside, I pulled forward 2 houses, killed the lights, and waited. 3 minutes later, a rideshare car picked her up. Not going to her sister's, not going anywhere close. I watched her go until the taillights vanished into the curve of North Crest Hills. That was the moment it truly hit me. My wife was living an entirely different life, and she trusted that I'd never notice. But Rowan Hale had forgotten one thing about me. I didn't build my life by being blind. I built it by surviving. And someone had just declared war on me without realizing who they were fighting. I didn't go home. I couldn't. The idea of walking into my own house, knowing another man had stood in my office, breathed my air, touched my things, made my skin crawl. Instead, I drove straight to the Riverside Hotel, paid in cash, and took a room on the 5th floor. A habit from my old life, the kind of life Rowan pretended never existed. From the window, I could see the faint outline of North Crest Hills across the valley. My house sat on the ridge like a postcard, silent, dark, innocent, a liar, just like her. I grabbed the binoculars from my truck and watched the place like a man studying the scene of his own funeral. Every shadow felt suspicious, every flicker of light, a threat. My phone buzzed. "Rowan. Made it to Emery's. She's having a rough night. Love you." Funny how betrayal looks polite when typed out. I didn't answer. Instead, I called the only person who owed me more than he owed the law. "Called her Voss," he answered, groggy. "It's Elias." That woke him up. "What happened? Your voice." "I need information," I said, "on a man named Damon Varick. Employment histories, arrest records, financials, associates, everything." A long pause. "Elias, it's almost midnight." "It wasn't a request." Calder exhaled. "Give me 2 hours." I hung up. My pulse kept a slow, steady rhythm, anger disguised as control. Years ago, I fought my way out of a neighborhood where fear meant death. Tonight, that part of me cracked its knuckles and stepped forward again. At 12:47 a.m., the side door of my house opened. I lifted the binoculars. A figure slipped out into the night, confident, unhurried. The kind of walk a man has when he thinks he owns the world. Damon Varick. He carried a duffel bag. My duffel bag. The one I kept full of emergency cash. Money I'd saved before Rowan ever met me. Watching him stroll across my lawn felt like swallowing broken glass. A few minutes later, Calder arrived at the hotel with a black case and a file. He looked at me like a doctor delivering a terminal diagnosis. Surveillance equipment, and the file on Varick. His voice dipped. "You're not going to like it." I opened the folder. Damon wasn't just a con man. He was an architect of destruction. 3 states, multiple affairs, bank accounts drained, women left bankrupt or investigated for fraud. He always chose wives with access to money, and he always vanished before charges stuck. My stomach tightened when I saw an old police report from Oregon. A husband describing, almost word for word, what I was living tonight. Calder hesitated. "Elias, if this is what it looks like, you should go to the police." "The police?" I laughed softly. It wasn't humor. It was disbelief. "You think the system protects people like me? Calder didn't answer. After he left, I kept reading until the words blurred. Damon's M.O., his hunting patterns, his manipulation techniques. Women weren't accidents to him, they were investments. And Rowan. Rowan wasn't a mistake in his playbook. She was a long-term strategy. My phone buzzed again. A call this time. Silas March. "You still awake?" he asked. "Barely," I said, "but yeah." Silas had a voice like gravel in winter. We grew up together in East Ridge, a place that taught us everything except mercy. "I got your message," he said. "You sure you want me in this?" I wouldn't have called otherwise. "What's the job?" "A man crossed into my world," I said, "and he thinks I won't notice." Silas grunted. "Send me his name." I walked to the window again. North Crest Hills was nothing but darkness and wealth sleeping behind locked doors. Homes like that made people believe they were untouchable. But I hadn't survived East Ridge by believing in fairy tales. There was a quiet moment of recognition. Like something in me shifted back into alignment. The part of me I'd buried for Rowan's comfort stepped out of the shadows again, steady and cold. The hunter, not angry, just awake. Before dawn, Silas called back. "Your boy Varric owes Russians," he said. "250,000, interest climbing." I stared at the ridge. "So he's desperate." "Desperate people make mistakes," Silas replied. "But this guy? He's been planning something big. Your wife didn't just fall into his arms, Elias. Someone coached her." "Rowan, my wife, my partner. The woman I pulled out of debt, supported through her father's bankruptcy, and held through her panic attacks. Had been coached on how to rob me." "How long?" I asked quietly. "Looks like 8 months minimum," but I knew better. I could feel it in my bones. This wasn't 8 months of rot. This was a year, maybe more. Silas's voice dropped. "You want me to put a team on your house? Track his movements? Or—" He left the last option hanging, the one we both knew existed. "Not yet," I said. "First, I want to see how deep this goes." I hung up and leaned back against the window frame. I wasn't shaking anymore, not grieving, not wounded, just aware. I'd spent years believing Rowan's love softened me, but now I saw the truth. I had mistaken comfort for safety, and safety for trust. Tonight rewrote all of that. Rowan Hale and Damon Varric thought they were predators, but predators don't panic when the lights turn on. And as the sun began to rise over Ashland Ridge, I realized something with perfect clarity. They didn't expose my weakness. They awakened my strength. By the time the sun pushed through the morning fog hanging over Ashland Ridge, I was already standing in my own driveway. The house looked ordinary again, quiet, polished, respectable. You'd never guess another man had walked through it like he was touring property he planned to steal. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and felt something I'd never felt in my own home. Contamination, not dirt, not mess. Violation. Every object seemed wrong. The framed photos. The scent of Rowan's perfume lingering in the hallway. Even the careful neatness of the kitchen felt staged now, like props in a play meant to convince me of a life that never truly existed. I walked room to room, not looking for chaos, but for the absence of it. Criminals who know their craft leave no chaos. They leave silence. And Damon Varric was silent. My study was the worst. He'd stood exactly where I was standing now, his hands probably on my desk, his breath shadowing the glass of my cabinets. I scanned everything with the trained eye I had learned in East Ridge. Dust lines, misaligned papers, drawers opened a fraction too wide. The safe was intact, but the air around it felt disturbed. I checked the timestamp on the old micro camera hidden behind a vent. There he was. 11:23 p.m. Calm, efficient, arrogantly relaxed. Watching Damon leaf through my files made my teeth grind. Watching him pocket my backup credit cards made my stomach twist. But the moment that carved itself permanently into me was this. He picked up my wedding photo, smirked at it, turned it face down. That tiny act did something to me. It didn't just anger me. It clarified me. Because only a man who believes he has already won does something that disrespectful. I rewound the footage again and again, memorizing his posture, his rhythm, the easy confidence of a man who'd rehearsed this routine on multiple husbands before me. Then I opened my phone and made the call that crossed the line between defense and offense. Silas answered on the first ring. "You're up early," he said. "I need a full team," I told him. "Surveillance grade. And I want people who understand that some problems don't have legal solutions." A pause, then a gruff, "How permanent we talkin'?" "I'll let you know," I said. While Silas mobilized his people, I headed downtown to meet Leora Penn. If Silas dealt with the shadows, Leora dealt with the numbers. Between the two of them, no lie survived. When I stepped into her office, she already had a stack of documents thick enough to suffocate someone. "You weren't kidding about urgent," she said. "Sit." I did. Leora slid the first file toward me. "Your wife has been moving money for at least 14 months. Small amounts, multiple accounts, all under federal reporting thresholds." "How much?" I asked. She flipped through pages like she was skimming someone's obituary. "About $400,000. The room didn't spin. It froze. That was the money I built my life with. The money I sweated for, bled for. The money she smiled about every time she said she was proud of me. There was more. She didn't do this alone," Leora continued. "Finley Ardens facilitated some of the transfers. Same company, same access points. It's clean work. Someone taught her how to wash money without triggering alerts." Finley. The friend Rowan always insisted was struggling and needed her support. That support, apparently, had come from my bank accounts. The humiliation hit deeper than I expected. It wasn't just that Rowan stole from me. She did it with her friend. They probably laughed about it. They probably laughed about me. Leora tapped the final folder. "This is where things get interesting. Damon Varick didn't just take your money, he's been taking hers too. She thinks they have 400,000. He actually has closer to 6. For a moment, I couldn't speak. Rowan betrayed me. Damon betrayed Rowan. And I was the foundation they built their fantasy life on. Then came the final blow. "Damon owes Russian lenders $250,000, Leora said. "They're out of patience." That part didn't shock me. I'd seen enough men drown in their own debts to recognize the pattern. But what did shock me was the realization. This wasn't just betrayal. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a heist. And I was the target they thought was too blind to fight back. I left Leora's office with the files under my arm and a new understanding in my chest. Rowan hadn't stumbled into Damon's trap. She walked willingly. She let greed lead her. She let admiration for a predator blind her to the fact she was prey too. Back at my house, Silas's men were already wiring the place with surveillance tech far beyond anything I'd used before. "Your wife comes home tonight," Silas said. "My guess? She'll act normal. She's good at playing pretend." I laughed once. No humor, just truth. "She's been pretending for years," I said. He nodded. "So have you, Elias. Just in a different way." He wasn't wrong. While the cameras went up, I sat on my bed, the same bed Rowan and I shared for 15 years, and stared at the ceiling. Everything felt too quiet, too staged, too rehearsed. This house wasn't a home anymore. It was a battlefield. And tomorrow, I would stop reacting and start attacking. Rowan Hale and Damon Varick thought they had me cornered, but they forgot one thing. You can't corner a man who has nothing left to lose. You create a hunter. And I had just remembered how to hunt. By the next morning, I knew one thing. If Rowan and Damon thought they were running a con, I was going to build a better one around them. The first step was simple. Starve them of access. I drove to Merrick Sloan's accounting office. Merrick had been with me since my first shop, long before Northcrest Hills and nightly dinners with people who use the word networking like a religion. He greeted me with his usual rigid posture, but the second he saw my face, his expression changed. "What happened?" he asked. "Restructure everything," I said. "Ownership transfers, shell corporations, liquid assets moved into accounts only I can touch." He blinked, stunned. "Elias, this is extreme. If this is about a divorce..." "It's not a divorce." The words came out colder than I intended. "It's survival." Merrick studied me for a long beat, then nodded slowly. "Tell me where to start." While Merrick built the legal wall I needed, I visited each of my shops one by one. The smell of engine oil and hot metal steadied me in a way nothing else could. These places were mine. These people were mine. They reminded me of who I'd been before Rowan, hungry, disciplined, ready to outwork the entire world. I pulled aside my managers privately, not to reveal what happened, just to ask questions only loyal men could answer. If the business faced threats, would you stay? Do you trust me? Can you keep what I'm about to do confidential? They didn't even hesitate. Some of them still remembered the Christmas bonuses I paid out when their kids needed surgery. Others remembered I hired them after other shops blacklisted them. Loyalty doesn't come from fear. It comes from history. And I had history with every man in those garages. By noon, the financial restructuring was in motion. By mid-afternoon, Silas texted me a single update. "Web is ready. Move when you're ready." But I wasn't done. Next was the meeting with Adrian Lockridge, a man who wore tailored suits but spoke like someone who'd seen darker places than East Ridge. His office smelled faintly of leather and scotch. He studied me with sharp, assessing eyes. "Silas told me you have a situation," he said. "That's one word for it." I laid everything out, not emotionally, not dramatically, just facts. Rowan's affair, the stolen money, Damon's debt, the risk of federal flags, every betrayal in chronological order, like I was reciting someone else's tragedy. When I finished, Adrian leaned back in his chair. "What's your endgame?" I met his gaze. "Complete destruction." He didn't flinch. That's how I knew I'd chosen the right man. "Then you'll need leverage," he said. "Legal, financial, psychological. Your wife cheated because she underestimated you. Make sure she never does again." I nodded once. I already started. And then I told him about Costa Rica. Rowan thought she and Damon were building a future there, a place where nobody knew them, where their stolen money could buy them a new life. My plan was to give her that exact future, just not in the way she expected. I left Adrian's office and drove home, rehearsing the next move in my head. Every betrayal needs a mirror. Every con needs a counter-con. And Rowan was about to be hit with both. When Rowan returned home that evening, she came through the door carefully, the way guilty people do when they're trying to pretend they aren't. She dropped her purse on the counter, smiled too wide, and asked, "How was your day?" Interesting, I said. I'm thinking of expanding, maybe opening a fourth shop. Her smile twitched, almost invisible, but I caught it. A fourth? Elias, that sounds expensive. I shrugged. There's a property across town. Perfect location, but I'd have to liquidate assets to make it happen. The panic flashed in her eyes, quick, sharp, unmistakable, because she knew what that meant. Liquidation meant number shifting. Number shifting meant someone might notice missing money. Someone noticing meant her fantasy world collapsing. Oh, she said lightly. Well, maybe we should talk about big financial decisions together. Of course, I said. We're partners in everything. Partners. It was almost funny. That night, she slept facing away from me, her back rigid, muscles coiled tight. Her breathing wasn't relaxed. It was waiting. She wasn't resting. She was calculating. Earlier, Silas had sent another message. Damon moved today. 3 calls to offshore banks. He's nervous. Good. Nervous men reveal themselves. Nervous men make mistakes. I lay in the dark and stared at the ceiling, the same way I had the previous night. Except now, I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel betrayed. I didn't feel small. I felt awake. Rowan thought she was dismantling my life piece by piece, but what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that all she had done was give me a reason to build something stronger. Not a life with her. A war against her. Tomorrow, I'd introduce the plan that would bring both her and Damon Varick to their knees. Because predators only win when their prey is blind. And I wasn't blind anymore. The next morning, I woke before Rowan did. Not because I couldn't sleep, because I didn't need to. A different kind of energy lived in my chest now. Something sharp, controlled, purposeful. The kind of focus I used to have in East Ridge when survival meant knowing your next move before your enemy even took theirs. I left early and drove downtown to meet Leora Penn again. When she opened the door to her office, she didn't even bother with greetings. She simply held out a flash drive. You're going to want this. Inside were the files she'd mentioned yesterday. Every account Rowan touched, every transfer she'd made, every signature she forged under the illusion that nobody watched women who smiled sweetly and filed taxes early. But Leora had something else too. She turned her computer screen toward me. Look at this. Incoming transfers. Outgoing transfers. Amounts that matched Rowan's activity, but diverted into accounts she'd never seen. Damon was stealing from her too? I asked. Oh, constantly. Leora crossed her arms. Your wife thinks they built a future together. He built one for himself. 600,000 total, 3 of which she doesn't know about. The irony hit me harder than I expected. Rowan didn't just betray me. She was being betrayed in return. A con artist falling for a con artist. A snake swallowing another snake. It should have made me feel something. Satisfaction, pity, justice. But instead, I just felt distance, like I was studying a crime scene from behind the glass. Before noon, Silas sent an update. Damon tried 3 different banks today. Frozen. He's spiraling. Good. Desperation gives birth to mistakes. And today, I needed both Rowan and Damon to panic. I chose lunch at the Ridge Bistro again, the place where my life had cracked open. Rowan arrived late, which told me everything I needed. She wasn't avoiding me. She was juggling Damon. Her smile was tight. Her lipstick uneven, like she'd rushed applying it in the car. I'm sorry, she said breathlessly. It's been a morning. Sit. I got you something. I slid the Costa Rica folder across the table, the one filled with property listings, financial projections, investment pathways. All of it curated to look as real as Damon's fantasies. She opened the first page. Her face drained of color so fast it was almost beautiful. What? What is this? Our future, I said. I've been thinking about leaving the country, starting fresh, somewhere quiet, somewhere we can really be ourselves. She swallowed, hard. Costa Rica. It's perfect, I said. Your friend Damon told me all about it. He's quite knowledgeable about transferring assets offshore. Her hand jerked. She nearly dropped the folder. How do you know Damon? I smiled the kind of smile you offer someone at a funeral. Calm, gentle, dead. He used to work for me. Remember? She didn't breathe for a moment. I could see her brain spinning, calculating, adjusting, panicking. Elias, I don't think this is a good idea. We should slow down. Why? Damon says timing is everything. And the sooner we move our assets, the cleaner the trail. Rowan's eyes widened and she grabbed her phone. Too quickly. Too desperately. A message from Damon must have hit like a punch to her ribs. Her face shifted from panic to horror. I'm not feeling well, she whispered. I need to go home. Take the packet with you, I said. Review it. We'll talk tonight. She didn't even finish her water before leaving. I sat there long after she'd gone, watching the chair across from me, imagining the chaos inside her skull. Because now she had a choice. Warn Damon and expose everything, or stay silent and hope I bought the Costa Rica dream. Either way, the web tightened. That evening, when I walked into the house, Rowan was pacing the kitchen, phone in hand, folder open beside her. She snapped to attention when she saw me. You didn't tell me you talked to Damon. You didn't ask. She gave a shaky laugh. I think maybe we should meet with him, together, so he can answer our questions. I nodded. Great idea. Tomorrow night. Her shoulders slumped, and for a split second I saw it. A crack in the armor of the woman who'd once looked untouchable to me. After she went to bed, Silas texted, "Package delivered. Phase 3, ready." I walked into my study, opened my safe, and took out the digital recorder. Hours of conversations, whispers, plans, mockery. Rowan's voice telling Damon how easy I was to fool. Damon explaining how he'd eventually cut ties clean. She had no idea she'd fallen for a man preparing to end her life the way she helped end mine. I placed the recorder back inside the safe, locked it, and stood there for a long, quiet moment, letting the next 24 hours settle into place. Tomorrow, I wouldn't need to guess anymore. I wouldn't need cameras or trackers or files. Tomorrow, I'd sit across from both of them, and I'd watch their world fall apart from the inside out. Because they didn't just betray me, they underestimated me. And that was the last mistake they'd ever make. Steakhouses always smell like money, burned butter, oak smoke, red wine poured like it means something. Morton's was no different. Dim lights, polished silver, and the low murmur of people pretending they had control over their own lives. I arrived 10 minutes early. I didn't sit. I claimed the booth, corner seat, back against the wall, full view of the entrance. Old habits from Eastridge die hard, mostly because they keep you alive. Rowan arrived first. She walked in wearing a blazer she only put on when she wanted to project stability. Her hair was perfect, too perfect, as if she'd redone it 3 times trying to stop her hands from shaking. She slid into the booth across from me and folded her hands tightly, knuckles white. Elias, thank you for agreeing to this. Like she was the one making requests. Like she wasn't the reason we were here. Before I could answer, Damon Varick walked in through the front doors, and suddenly the room felt wrong. He wasn't handsome the way Rowan seemed to believe. He was performative, a smile tailored to each direction it pointed, a posture that said, "I've done this before," because he had, many times. He approached the table with his hand extended. "Elias, it's been a long time." I didn't take his hand. A flicker of irritation crossed his face before he hid it with charm. "So," he said, sitting beside Rowan, "I hear you're interested in restructuring assets." I leaned back slowly, letting silence sharpen into threat. "I brought some paperwork," I said. I set the briefcase on the table and opened it with deliberate calm. 3 folders, 3 weapons. I placed them between us like surgical instruments. "Let's start with this one." I opened the first folder. Financial documents printed neatly, highlighted precisely. "These," I said, "are records of money taken from my business accounts over the last 14 months. Withdrawals in your wife's handwriting. Accounts she opened. Transfers she approved." Rowan's breath hitched. Her shoulders pressed inward as though she was trying to shrink her entire existence into the seam of the booth. "Elias, please, "You'll have your turn," I said softly. Damon's expression didn't move. He trained his eyes on the papers, even nodding like a financial advisor reviewing a client's portfolio. Then I opened the second folder. Photographs, crisp, timed, organized. Damon entering my house, leaving with my cash, meeting Rowan at hotel rooms, his hand on her lower back. Her face tilted toward him with a smile she hadn't given me in years. The pictures landed on the table like bullets. Rowan made a sound, small, strangled, like something inside her had cracked. Damon only raised an eyebrow. "Well, I can explain." "No," I cut him off. "You can't." Then came the third folder. This one changed everything. Recordings, transcripts, printed excerpts of their conversations, some financial, some intimate, some mocking me. I didn't need to watch their faces. I felt the shift. Rowan's voice from the transcript. "He'll never notice. Elias trusts me completely." Damon's voice. "Good. The blind ones are the easiest." She covered her mouth. Tears gathered but didn't fall. She was too proud for that. Too vain. But the terror was there, clinging to her skin. Damon glanced at her with a flicker of annoyance. He hadn't expected his words to be printed too. Good. I wasn't here for comfort. I was here for truth. I let the moment breathe. Let the silence force them to sit with the weight of what they'd done. Then I said quietly, "Now we talk." Rowan broke first. "Elias, please. I didn't mean for any of this. Stop." The word came out like a knife, clean and exact. "You meant every part of it. You just didn't mean for me to find out." Tears finally slipped. She bowed her head. Damon sat straighter, sensing the shift. "Look, Elias, maybe this got complicated, but we can resolve." I cut him off with the next page. "Did Rowan tell you she took out a life insurance policy on me?" Damon froze. Rowan looked like she'd been slapped. $2 million. Her as the primary beneficiary, Damon as secondary. The betrayal wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was that neither of them knew the other knew. I watched them realize it in real time. The affair didn't break them. The money did. It always does. "What is this?" Damon asked, voice tightening. Rowan stammered, I wanted us to. Just security, just..." "For who?" I asked. "For what? For when?" The silence that followed tasted bitter and electric. Damon turned toward Rowan fully now, voice low and venomous. "You didn't tell me about this." She snapped back, trembling. "And you didn't tell me you were stealing from me, Damon. I know about the hidden accounts." His jaw clenched. Her hands shook. Their alliance, so carefully crafted, burned to ash right there at the table. I sat back and watched the destruction unfold like a quiet spectator at a fire. Then I added the final match. I pulled out my phone and displayed a message from Silas. Package secured. All locations monitored. Await instructions. You should know, I said calmly. Every account you've touched, every message you've sent, every step you've taken in the last month has been tracked. Rowan gasped. Damon's face darkened. And there's more, I said. Federal agents will be raiding your office, Rowan, and your apartment, Damon. Evidence of fraud, identity theft, offshore laundering, everything. It was a lie. But panic doesn't understand lies. Rowan grabbed Damon's arm. He flinched like her touch burned, and I smiled. Here's what happens next, I said. I pointed at Damon. You transfer every single dollar you stole, mine and hers, back to my accounts, all 600,000. He swallowed hard. Then I pointed at Rowan. And you're signing divorce papers that leave you with exactly what you brought into this marriage. She whispered, nothing. Correct. Their world didn't explode. It collapsed. Quietly, completely, beautifully. I stood, placed $500 on the table for the untouched food, and said, you have 24 hours. After that, I am not the one you'll have to answer to. I walked away without looking back. Behind me, the argument started, low at first, then sharp, then vicious. Two predators turning on each other the second they realized their prey wasn't prey at all. I didn't go home after the dinner at Morton's. Somehow, the idea of sleeping under the same roof where Damon Varick had stood, smiled, stolen, and desecrated my life made my skin crawl. So I drove to my first shop, the place that built me, the place that never lied. It was quiet inside, the kind of quiet that settles deep in your bones. I sat in my office, lights off, watching the surveillance feeds Silas had patched into my phone. By 1 a.m., the chaos had already begun. Rowan's calls to Damon went unanswered. Damon's calls to offshore banks bounced. Rowan left 3 voicemails, each more frantic than the last. Damon left one message for some unknown contact that Silas traced to a bar Russians like to haunt. By 3 a.m., Damon tried to log into 3 different accounts. Every attempt failed. Every password reset rejected. Every financial door slammed shut. He was used to being the one who trapped people. It clearly never occurred to him someone might trap him. Around 6:15 a.m., my phone rang. Damon. I answered like I'd been expecting him. His voice came tight, breathless, panicked. Elias, listen. We need to talk. I'm listening. This has gone too far, he said. Way too far. There's a solution here. We just need to... I already gave you the solution, I said. Yesterday. I can't transfer anything from frozen accounts. Then unfreeze them. You don't understand. I cut him off. No, Damon. You don't understand. This isn't bargaining. This is consequences. Silas once told me something true. Desperation always sounds the same. A thin film of fear stretched over arrogance. Damon was no exception. What do you want? He finally asked. I want you gone, I said. I want you out of Ashland Ridge. I want the money returned, and I want you to spend the rest of your life remembering you should never have stepped into my house. He was quiet, breathing hard. And Rowan, he asked. My wife is my concern, I said. Not yours. Then I hung up. Not out of anger. Out of finality. Silas called moments later. Your guy's in trouble, he said. Seems he reached out to his Russian friends. They aren't happy. Let them find him. Already handled. I leaned back in the old leather chair in my office. The same chair I bought when I was 25 and barely scraping rent. Back then, survival was simple. Outwork everyone, outsmart everyone, never show weakness. And here I was again, full circle. By noon, I got the next update. Damon had tried to flee the state that morning. He made it as far as the airport. TSA flagged his passport. They questioned him for 3 hours. They released him with a warning that his travel was restricted until financial irregularities were resolved. Good. I wanted him cornered. Cornered men show truth. At 2 p.m., I called Rowan. "We need to meet," I said. Her voice sounded hollow, scraped, raw. "I'll sign whatever you want." "Good. My lawyer's office, 3 o'clock. She arrived looking like someone had drained the color out of her life. Foundation couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes. Her hands shook as she signed the divorce papers, every page representing a lie she'd told, every signature the collapse of the fantasy she'd built with Damon. When it was done, she looked at me with wet, trembling eyes. "What happens now?" she whispered. I studied her the way you study broken machinery, trying to remember what it looked like before it stopped working. "Now," I said, "you learn to live with the consequences of your choices." "Will you press charges?" "No," I said. "You're not worth the effort." That hurt her more than anything else I could have said. Good. Some wounds need to be permanent. I walked out of the law office and didn't look back. But I wasn't finished. Not with Damon. Silas texted me later that night. "Ready? Warehouse in Westline, 10 p.m. The drive there felt surreal. Quiet, focused, like walking towards something inevitable. The warehouse was dark except for a single overhead bulb. Damon sat tied to a chair, bruised, terrified, shaking in a way that had nothing to do with the cold air. "Elias," he gasped when he saw me. "Thank God. These men are insane. They think I owe them money." "You do," I said. He blinked rapidly. "That's impossible. I never borrowed—" "No. You stole money that was being used to pay a debt. Now it's your debt." His breathing hitched. "I don't— Elias, please. I don't have the money. I can fix this. Just give me—" "You had chances to fix it," I said. "You had months. You had warnings. You had my wife, my house, my money. And you thought I'd never see you." I stepped closer. For the first time, I saw what Damon truly was. Not charming, not confident, not a predator. Just a coward who finally saw the bigger predator in the room. "You made 3 mistakes," I said quietly. "You seduced my wife. You robbed me. And then you underestimated me." I nodded to Silas. Damon's voice broke. "Elias, wait. But I was already walking out. His fate wasn't mine to deliver. It was his own choices catching up to him. The night air hit my face as I stepped outside, cold, clean, merciful. For the first time in weeks, my breath came easy. Behind me, the warehouse doors closed, and with them, the last chapter of Damon Varick's life. I didn't stay to watch what happened to Damon Varick. Men like him don't need witnesses, only consequences. Besides, I already knew the ending. Some men collapse, some men run. But men like Damon, they disappear the moment real danger looks them in the eyes. 3 days after the warehouse, the local news confirmed what I already knew. Ashland Ridge resident Damon Varick missing. Car found at airport. Unclear if he boarded a flight. No family to file a real report. No friends to chase the truth. Just a predator who stepped into the wrong man's life and vanished the way predators often do, quietly and without ceremony. I felt nothing. No thrill, no guilt, no victory. Just relief. Clean and cold. The police labeled it routine disappearance, which was their polite way of saying not worth resources. Damon had spent years perfecting the art of slipping out of towns like a ghost. It seemed fitting his final act matched the rest of his life. But Rowan Hale, her ending wasn't so clean. I found her sitting alone in a booth at the Ridge Bistro, the same place where my marriage had snapped in two. Her shoulders hunched inward, her eyes hollow, her hair tied back in a way that made her look smaller, almost unrecognizable. She didn't look up when I sat down. She didn't have to. She felt me. "I heard about Damon," she said quietly. "The police came by my apartment yesterday." "Did they?" I said. "They asked about his financial dealings, his associates. They asked about you." I waited. "I told them the truth," she whispered. "That I hadn't seen him since dinner. That he used to work for you. That I didn't know anything else." I nodded. Smart. Self-preservation disguised as cooperation. We sat in silence for several seconds. 15 years of a marriage between us, yet nothing left to say that wasn't debris. "I never meant for it to go this far," she said. I almost laughed. She meant every step, until the consequences caught up. "You took out a life insurance policy on me," I said. $2 million. Beneficiary listed as you first, and Damon second. Her face twisted. It wasn't about killing you. It was just, "Don't lie," I said softly. "I'm tired of lies." Her mouth snapped shut. "Good." She stared at the table, voice barely above a breath. "What happens to me now?" "You disappear," I said. "You take whatever money you manage to hide from Damon and from me, and you leave Ashland Ridge. You don't call. You don't write. You never stand in front of me again." "And if I don't?" I leaned forward, let her see the truth in my eyes. Not rage, not pain, just inevitability. "Then you'll learn that Damon isn't the only one who owed dangerous people money." Her lips trembled. The color drained from her face. She finally understood. "You can't betray a man who survived the streets of East Ridge and expect to walk away untouched." "You have 1 week," I said. "Make it count." I stood to leave, took one step, then paused. "One more thing, Rowan." She lifted her head, eyes glistening. "If I ever hear your name again, if you ever try to come back into my life, what happened to Damon will look like mercy." She let out a sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. I walked away. Not fast, not angry, just finished. Outside, I sat in my truck for a long moment, hands on the wheel, staring at the quiet glow of Ashland Ridge. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something close to peace. 15 years of marriage, and all it took was one note on a cold highway shoulder to peel back the truth. The love I thought I had was paper thin, fragile, already rotting long before Damon touched it. But here's the thing about loss. You survive it, or it swallows you. And I'd survived worse. I'd survived East Ridge. I'd survived men harder and dirtier than Damon Varick. I'd survived betrayal before. I could survive this. Later that night, Silas sent a final message. Package handled, no loose ends. I deleted it and started the truck. Tomorrow, my life would begin again, without the weight of people who had never deserved a single piece of it. And this time, I would build a foundation no one could steal from me. Not with lies, not with charm, not with love twisted into a weapon. Because I had learned the lesson Rowan and Damon taught me at a cost they could never repay. The only person I can trust is myself. And sometimes, that is more than enough. 6 months after Rowan Hale walked out of my life for the last time, I stood inside the office of my fourth auto shop, watching my crew prep for another full day. The place smelled like engine oil and new beginnings, the same scent that carried me through my 20s when all I had was a beat-up truck, borrowed tools, and more determination than sense. Funny how life has a way of circling back, cleaner this time, sharper, quieter. Business had exploded, insurance payouts, the recovered money Damon stole, and the settlement Rowan never fought gave me enough leverage to expand faster than I'd planned. People assumed success feels triumphant, but sometimes it just feels like absence, the space left behind once the chaos is gone. A silence you have to learn to fill. I hired local kids from neighborhoods like the one I grew up in. Hard workers, rough edges, stories in their eyes. I didn't ask questions. I only asked for honesty and effort. Loyalty comes from opportunity, not fear. Something Damon never understood. Every few weeks, Silas stopped by under the excuse of checking security. We both knew he was really checking on loose ends that could threaten the new foundation I was building. One afternoon, he sat across from me, set his coffee down, and said, "Rowan relocated. Phoenix. New job at a small accounting firm. Keeps her head low. No contact with anyone." I waited for something. Anger, satisfaction, nostalgia. But all I felt was distance. She wasn't a chapter anymore. She was a footnote. "Do you want her watched?" Silas asked. I thought about it, but only for a moment. Fear was already punishing her more efficiently than I ever could. She'd wake every day wondering where Damon went, wondering whether someone would knock on her door to collect debts she didn't know how to fight, wondering if my shadow still followed her. "No," I said. "Let her go." Silas nodded once, as if he'd expected that answer. But that wasn't the situation he'd come to discuss. "What about Officer Crest?" he asked. I exhaled slowly. Rylan Crest, the one man who'd taken a risk for me when he didn't have to. His warning on that highway changed everything. And men who step into danger for you, those men you never forget. "What about him?" I asked. "He's struggling. Daughter's leukemia. Insurance won't cover the treatment that could save her." I closed my eyes. I remembered hearing that tone before, his voice carrying a weight most men would crack under. "How much?" 200,000. "Handle it," I said. "Through the charity fund we use. No trail." Silas smiled faintly. "Already done." After he left, I walked through the shop, checking stations, talking to employees, fixing a misaligned fender myself, just to remind my hands they still know who I am. Leadership isn't distance. Leadership is presence. My phone rang as I was reviewing inventory sheets. Unknown number. Elias. "Cade?" "Mr. Cade, this is Detective Valerie Maddox, County Sheriff's Department. I'm investigating the disappearance of Damon Varick. I was hoping you could answer a few questions." My pulse barely moved. I'd been expecting her. "Of course, Detective. What works for you?" "I'm nearby. Could I stop by?" "I'll be in my office." She arrived 20 minutes later, a middle-aged woman with sharp, patient eyes, the kind that catalog every detail while pretending not to. I offered her coffee. She declined, opening a small notebook instead. "I understand Damon Varick used to work for you." "Yes," I said. 5 years ago. I let him go for theft." "Did you report it?" "No, it was a small amount, and I believed in giving people second chances." She made another note. "When was the last time you saw him?" I let a shadow cross my face, subtle, measured. 2 months ago. He reached out about a business opportunity. My ex-wife joined us. During the meeting, I realized he was stealing from my accounts and having an affair with Rowan. Detective Maddox watched my expression carefully. And how did that meeting end? I told him to stay away from me and my family. If I saw him again, I'd involve the police. I should have done that years ago. She nodded slowly. Your ex-wife confirmed that. I'm sure she did. You finalized your divorce shortly after? Yes. Discovering she was cheating didn't exactly inspire reconciliation. She closed her notebook for a moment. Where were you on the evening of March 15th? Home alone. Rowan had moved out by then. I ordered takeout and watched TV. I can get you receipts if you like. That won't be necessary right now. She stood. One last question, Mr. Cade. Do you have any idea what might have happened to Damon Varick? I let silence settle between us. Then I spoke the truth, dressed as speculation. Detective, Damon was a con artist. He owed money to dangerous people. He left enemies in every city he lived in. If he disappeared, someone finally caught up. She held my gaze for 3 beats, then extended her card. Thank you for your time. If anything comes to mind, call me. I will. When she drove off, I called Silas. Detective Maddox stopped by. I know, he said. She's thorough, but she won't find anything because nothing exists. Good. That evening, I sat alone in my study, the same room where I discovered Rowan's betrayal. Now the safe was filled with new documents. Insurance under my name alone. Contracts securing every shop. Accounts locked so tightly, even I sometimes forgot the passwords. Everything mine. Everything protected. I thought about Rowan, probably lying awake in some cheap Phoenix apartment, listening for every noise in the hallway. I thought about Damon. What was left of him, if anything. Mostly, I thought about this strange feeling in my chest that felt like freedom. Not comfort, not joy, just clarity. I had rebuilt my life without the rot, without the lies, without the dead weight I'd been dragging behind me for 15 years. My phone buzzed, a text from Officer Crest. Mr. Cade, thank you. My daughter starts treatment Monday. You saved her life. I don't know how to repay you. I smiled faintly and deleted the message. Some debts are worth remembering, some favors worth returning, some foundations worth rebuilding correctly this time. And as I sat there, watching the city lights flicker through the window, I understood something simple and sharp. In a world full of predators, you survive by becoming the one they fear. And me, I've never been afraid of the dark.